blessed and wonderful Tuesday morning to you all. I want to talk with you about one of my sort of guilty pleasures, if you will. We've been doing this a long time now, so I feel that I can make this confession and that you won't judge me too harshly. I am a fan of some of the reality shows that you have on television. Now, before we get too deep into it, no, I'm not talking about the Bachelor or Survivor or those kind of things. No, instead I'm talking about some of the cooking shows, and I like Chopped, and I like to watch the Bobby Flay show. But the one I want to talk about the most today is a show called Restaurant Impossible. You've all seen this. Robert Irvine is a celebrity chef. Big, humongous guy, biceps out to here, somewhat of a gentle giant. He's a really talented chef and an imposing individual. But he has this show called Restaurant Impossible. And what the show does is it goes to restaurants that are failing. Usually family-run businesses. This isn't a thing for chains. This is for typically mom and pop type restaurants that at one point in their life cycle had been fairly successful, if not very successful. But as the world has changed, usually they have not, and now they find themselves really on the brink of having to shut down the restaurant. If you know anything about the restaurant industry, you know that the owners of restaurants, the restaurant is their life. It is where all of their work time, their home time, their family time, all of their money is invested into this. They don't have retirement accounts. Everything is the restaurant. So if the business closes, much of their life is going to be changed in tremendous ways. And what usually happens, it follows a very familiar format. These folks are failing, but they don't really know why. They don't understand why. So they bring in this, after a long time of struggling and wondering, they finally get to the point where they admit that perhaps they need some outside help, someone beyond themselves. And so they bring in Chef Robert, who comes in and in 48 hours is going to change everything and fix this business for them. The very first thing he does is talk with the people and find out why they're failing. And they don't know. They think they're doing things the way they've always done them, and they're mystified as to why things aren't working. So he comes in, looks around the restaurant, usually finds that the decor is incredibly dated, things are broken, and it's just not an appealing place that people want to come to. And then he has them run through a service for him. And what you'll typically find is the service staff is not very good. They don't do things to encourage customers to enjoy themselves. The food is usually, at this point, while it might have been good 15, 20, 30, 40 years ago, it has gotten pretty bad as their money has dried up. They've really cut a lot of corners, and their food is not good. And again, this is really hard for them because their identity is invested in this. And so the first part of the show is Chef Robert really being tough and basically breaking them down. They have to get beyond the idea that the way we've always done it is perfect, and the problem isn't with me, it's with those customers who just don't want to come and give me their money. No, that's not it. What Robert has to help these people see is that the problem is in fact with them. And the only way to do that, though, is to really break open that hardened shell that they've developed among themselves and get them to think that perhaps, just perhaps, what they're doing may not be the one and only best way to do it. It is exactly what Carol has just posted up here, tough love. And it can be brutal, especially when it's this big hulking guy. I mean, it's tough. There's usually tears. Now, I know that a lot of this is created drama for the show, but bear with me. There is a point to this. But once they have gotten through that part, once he has broken them open and gotten out of that hard shell and into the person that is still inside, who is scared, who is unsure, who is really not willing or able to admit that they're likely at fault in this, once he's gotten them to open up that shell, then the real work of fixing their problems can begin. Because if you're just trying to pound through that shell, nothing's going to happen. Things keep bouncing off of it, and nothing ever changes. By now, you've probably realized what I'm talking about and why I'm mentioning this. We used to call it 2020, but now it's January, so we have to just sort of say, this time in our lives is much like what happens on this show. We have been assaulted by so many things that are trying to break open this hard shell that we put on ourselves. We have the pandemic, we have racial divides, we have economic uncertainty, we now have insurrection plots that our Capitol building was assaulted. These are things that just are not supposed to happen. Our lives have been really upended, and we're finding that this shell of self-confidence that we encased ourselves in has been broken. But brothers and sisters, I'm going to suggest to you that maybe that's exactly what needed to happen. For just like Chef Robert has to break through all of the excuses before he can start to heal them and fix them and get them on a path to being whole and being successful, maybe that's exactly what we have needed ourselves. Now, whether that is a plan from God or not, I'm not going to opine on that right now, but it is in fact what's happened to us. It's where we are. We have seen that there is huge disagreement. There are people on this side and there are people on this side, and all we have been doing now is just yelling and throwing things at one another. That's not going to solve our problem. Instead, if we can recognize that we have all now been broken open, let's put down those defenses and let's try to find a way to figure out how to heal us, how to build again. We can do this, brothers and sisters. It is in fact possible. For just at the end of each one of those shows, they reopen the restaurant with a whole new lease on life, with new skills, with a new willingness to look at things differently, with a way to listen to others in ways they had never done before. We can do the very same thing. That is my hope, and that is my fervent prayer. So find ways to do that. Be willing to consider the fact that you may not be 100% right, and that other people may not be 100% wrong. Find a way to engage in conversation. Not judgment, not argument, not listening to respond, but listening to listen and to hear. Find a way beyond agree to disagree. Agree to disagree just means the status quo. Find a way to really listen and hear one another. It's going to be hard. It's going to be painful. Nothing about this is easy. If you want to go to the gym, it's 21, it's January, you want to start working out again, you want to go to the gym, you think that's going to be easy? No, it's going to be painful, it's going to be hard, but you know what? It's going to be worth it when you put in the time and effort. We know this. Why would we think our lives would be anything but that? So be willing to step into that discomfort. Be willing to step into the pain and the challenge of speaking with someone and listening to someone that you completely disagree with, and see if you can find just a kernel of place that you might agree. For there, brothers and sisters, is where we can start to build again. God bless you. God love you. We'll see you tomorrow.